Good morning. Welcome to Daily Revelations. Thanks for joining me. So, still in First and Second Kings, we're going to kind of take a roundabout back through on a different line of story through the Bible this week as we continue to learn about just the mistakes that Israel made. And unfortunately, we continue to make them. So what is fortunate is we have their lessons to learn from, but are we learning from them? And that's what I want to dive into today. How to lead successfully. God asks us, no matter who you are leading somebody. Somebody's watching you, whether you're a stay-at-home mom and you have little kids, whether you work as a checker at a store. There are customers who are constantly looking to you for advice. No matter where you are, people look to you to lead them. How do you handle that? And that's what 1 Kings 12 and 19 offer us. It was interesting as I was reading through the first chapter, I thought, ooh, this is a really example of how to not do this correctly. And then in 19, God shows us another way that leadership is supposed to look like, and He comes in and acts as that leader. So, what am I talking about? So, in 1 Kings 12, Solomon dies. So Solomon was the great king of Israel. Everything under his power was wonderful. And he had so many sons. He had so many wives, so he had so many sons. And in the end, his one son, Rehoboam, was crowned king. And Rehoboam decided not to follow his father's wisdom or to listen to his father's advisors, and instead to go seek advisement from people that were his friends that unfortunately made some really bad choices. And so in the end, he made a decision that basically split the kingdom, and split the kingdom not in his favor. Out of the 12 tribes that were left, he had one. And the other 11 went and followed another leader to Samaria, which then became the northern kingdom. And that's the way it stayed divided until Israel went into exile. The northern kingdom went first, and the southern kingdom, which we talked about a couple days ago, they went about 120 some years later. So what exactly was involved in his decision making that we can learn from? Because that's what we want to take away from it. And so this is what I wrote down. Well, he listened to people that were his friends that were probably not very wise. They said what he wanted to hear. But when you need to make decisions, not based on just what you need to hear, but on the good for everyone, you need to listen to opposing people's views that you may not fully agree with, and you may not understand why they're giving you that advice. But it doesn't mean you don't listen and you go to somebody else. Sometimes you have to wrestle through that. You have to find out, why is this person advising me this way, and have really deep discussions, and wrestle with that with God as well as them, to come to some understanding as to what really is the truth involved in this. He acted upon fear, because what he feared was that all the people would take over and say he was a sloppy leader, and that loosening the yoke that his father had put on these people would actually cause them to turn against him. And so that fear drove a lot of his decisions. And we'll see that in our other example as well, but where this person's fear was, it took him completely different. So he went against God's plans. He changed them to his own, and he used his power to control. He didn't use his power for compassion, where our other story is the complete opposite. So So that's what led to his destruction. And it leads to the destruction, unfortunately, of a lot of people, not just like prominent leaders, but all of us, as we are given certain things to have dominion over. Maybe it's your house, maybe it's your family, an animal, whatever. We need to make sure that our choices are based on what is true and wise advice. And consider that sometimes the best advice does not come from inside here. It comes from externally, learning to take what other people and what God gives us, and sorting that out. And that's the example that the leadership of God led to Elijah to overcome his leadership issue. You see, Elijah, many chapters later, basically killed off all the prophets of Baal. And in that process, the lady who was the queen of then the northern kingdom, she put out word that she was going to kill him because and do to him what he had done to her priests. And in fear, Elijah ran. But Elijah didn't run away to solve his own problem. He ran to God. He was on his way to Mount Horeb. And Mount Horeb, if you remember, is where Moses met with God. And he was on the fast track there. He didn't prepare well, but God took compassion on him. God in this story is the leader. He was near Elijah during his whole struggle. He listened to what Elijah had to say. He took in his fears, but he contrasted his fears when Elijah was ready to hear with what was true. And he fed him. He comforted in him. He encouraged him. And he said, you keep going. Get to that mountain so you can meet with God. Meet with me. He even sent an angel that was there physically with him. And as a leader, we need to realize whatever influence we have in our lives, if we can act this way towards those fearful situations, if we see somebody struggling, if we can come along and encourage them, if we can allow them compassion for where they're at, not where we expect them to be, or shame them or blame them for feeling this way. We just have to allow truth to come in when it's time. And God did that. He met with Elijah on the mountain, and he did all these things moving before him. And then in a still small voice, when Elijah was ready, he whispered the truth. And he said, this is what's really going on. Not that I understand this is what you see, but all these other things are happening. And I want you to have that perspective as well so that you can make a wise choice. And so as we look at our areas of influence in each of our lives, what are we doing to make our leadership be successful? Are we turning to our fears and our own ideas of what is right and what is wrong and how this situation should work out? Or are we turning to God and saying, you know what? I trust in your plan, and help me to help others to do the same, to wait on your advice, to go to you, to comfort those people, and not be judgmental about the struggle they have. Feelings are based on a lot of things. They're based on our past experiences. They're based on just our fears, and our greatest fears always come to the top. But if we can look at somebody and we can lead them based on truth and compassion, meeting their physical needs, and just walking alongside them, that is the type of leader that God shows us how to be. And in the end, showed Elijah how to keep on being a leader himself. And we perpetuate that then through our mentorship of everyone around us. And that's what we're really called to do. That is how to be a successful leader. So thanks for joining me today on Daily Revelations, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye, everybody.